Welcome to Speedy Walkthroughs, where we show just the important stuff to beating the game. For those watching for the first time, this will look a bit different to a normal walkthrough. It's designed to show just the essentials so that you don't need to spend a long time watching this video. I won't talk about fighting specific enemies unless they're very difficult, but I will show you where to go and what to do. Today we're playing Lord of the Sword, an action RPG / adventure game, and in my opinion an excellent hidden gem for the Master System. Now when you start up the game, it's really important to hit start and not continue. The reason being you have a limited number of continues, and hitting continue will use one up and just start you in the starting town. So when you start up, you'll get this backstory. Honestly, none of it really matters, and in fact, this information here is false. You don't really do those three things there. But once we're in town, we can do the exciting stuff, which is move around. The controls have this layout, so it is a game where up will make you jump, and then you can duck with down, and then you've got swords and arrows on the two face buttons. You do have an unlimited number of arrows, so you can use those as much as you want, same as swords here. I would recommend, if you're swording, to be jumping with it, otherwise it'll slow you down, and arrows are almost never useful because you have to come to a complete stop on the ground there. If you're playing on an emulator, I would recommend binding the up button to an actual face button on your controller, because jumping with the up button can be awkward at times. But if you do have jump on the up button, you will get used to it pretty quickly. Now, as soon as you start the game, you're just going to walk right, don't even bother going in the house, and you're just going to keep walking right. If you do find yourself low on health, you can go into houses to heal up, and you can keep going into the same house to heal up a little bit more health each time. Once you've walked all the way to the right, you'll come into a village called Amon, and you do need to go into the house here and talk to the wizard. The wizard gives you a book. So a couple things about houses: you can go into them to restore health if you need to, but also some characters don't say what they need to say until you've gone in a few times. So it's important to check the houses as much as you can. And you want to keep going right from Amon. Now, after you've gone right from Amon for a while, you'll come to this map, Castle Varlin. Just go up and left, and then continue right through this map here. Once you get to the end, you'll see this, go up and left, and then continue left through the woods. Once you get to the end of the woods, you'll see this tree, and you do need to talk to this tree to progress the game. So it'll say what it needs to, and then we can get out of here. Now we're going to head all the way back to where we started the game. So this video is going to show walking back through to that point. However, there is a glitch that you can do in the English versions of the game, which can get you back instantly. Essentially what you can do, if you want to get back to that starting town near Amon, what you can do is die and then let the demo play. When the demo plays, that sort of overrides what map the character is on, and it sends you back to the starting map. So that's a handy little shortcut if you need it, but the intended way is to walk back here. So again, you're going to get to this path, just take a left down here, and then you're going to follow this back through. We will go back through Castle Varlin here. So when you get here, go down and take a left. And then we're going to get all the way to the end of these maps, and we'll be back in Amon. And you don't need to talk to the wizard here again unless you're low on health. So now that we're back in Amon, you can go up these stairs to the left, and then we're basically going to move left until the very edge of the map. So we'll go through this forest, we'll go through these mountains, and we'll go through this swamp. And then we're in Farazon. Again, you don't need to talk to the person here unless you're low on health. Just be aware that some towns will require you to talk to the person. Okay, so now we're going to go through this swamp, and through the forest, and then we're going to get to the first boss of the game, this tree. Tree is pretty easy if you just keep slashing it and make sure that you're timing your sword hits in such a way that it can never get a move in. If you do that, you'll get a feel for it. It can basically never attack. Once we've beaten the tree, we can head out to the right. Alright, now that we've beaten this tree, we can head back through the right, through this forest. We're going to get to the end of it, and then go back through the swamp. And then when we get to the end of the swamp, we take an up left in the town. This is going to be a new area we haven't been to before. So we've got another swamp, we'll go through this to the right. And again, you're going to take an up left. And then we'll go through this swamp here to the left. We'll go through this river area as well. And we'll go through this swamp here. So that brings us to Ithel. Now this is the first instance of weird talking stuff with the townspeople. You actually have to talk to this person 3 times here. So until he says ridders of the evil swamp spirits, if he doesn't say that, the boss will never actually spawn. So it's really important, that bit. Okay, so we're going to go through this swamp just to the left of Ithel here. And then we'll go through the forest area here. And finally through the cave. Once we're at the end of the cave here, we've got our boss. So this boss is an interesting one. You have to shoot arrows at him. You're aiming to hit the mirror there with the arrows, but the mirror there is actually too high to hit with arrows, so you have to wait for him to come down next time. Now it's really important to hit the mirror when the mirror is actually facing you, so if it's sort of facing sideways, the arrows won't register. And you can tell that he moves back when it's a successful hit. You also have to manage these little clones of yourself and try to deal with those while you're hitting the mirror. And there's the boss done. Now that that's done, we can just head back out to the right of this map. Okay, now that the swamp boss is beaten, we can head back to the town to the right, Ithel. So we're going to get through this cabin, through the forest, and then through the swamp. Now that we're back here, we can actually get an upgrade to our weapon. So you want to talk to this guy here until he says, accept this bow as a reward. So that bow will be twice as powerful as the bow that we currently have, which is just fantastic. So you might find that you start using it a bit more. You can see I'm killing that green dude in 1 hit now. Now we're going to head to the right here, and then through the river area. We're going to be heading through this swamp area too, and then taking it down left in the forest. We're essentially heading back to where we started the game. So right now, if you did want to use that little glitch that lets you warp straight back to the start with the demo, feel free to. And then if not, we're in Farazon, and we're just going to head out of Farazon to the right here. That'll bring us way back to Amon, which is where we started. Okay, now that we're heading back to Amon, we're going to head through this little swamp area here. And then through this cliffy area. And through the forest. And we should be back in Amon now. You don't need to talk to the wizard here unless, of course, you're low on health and you want it refilled. So we're just going to head straight through to the right here. We're going to head through this forest, through the swampland. That brings us to the castle where we go up left. And then we're going to head right through this swamp. Now, with this forest, we're actually going to take a right here. Previously, we would have taken those stairs up to the tree. So this will be a new area we're seeing here. So we're going to head across to the right, through this river area, and then into Dwal. Now, Dwal, we don't need to do anything in here yet. We're just going to head straight through, and we're going to go over to Linden, which is the town on the right. Now, Linden is normally a dead end. The wall on the right side of the town is closed, but if we talk to this person enough, he'll open up the wall. And that requires us having beaten the first 2 bosses. There's a lot of tricky things in this game with ordering of things, so you got to be really careful and make sure you've done everything. When he says that his daughter's been taken, that's when we head off to the right and we can access this next area of the game here. Now that we've opened up this path, we're going to head to the right, through this swampland, then through the forest, and we'll have this pirate boss here. So once again, with pretty much all bosses in this game, you can hit stun them if you have your sword timing correct. And even if you can just hit stun them for a little bit, it usually helps quite a lot. Wouldn't really recommend arrows. Even though your arrows are stronger at this point, your sword can really do what it needs to. So that's the pirate boss beaten, and then you'll get a free health refill off the princess here. You can only meet this princess just once here, and then she goes back to town, so it's really good to make the most of this health refill here. Then we're going to keep heading to the right, all the way through this section here. And that brings us to Castle Elder, and probably one of the hardest, most trickiest bits of the game is this. It's 5 jewels. So some of them are pretty straightforward, like this dude, you can just keep sorting him, but others have some pretty weird strategies behind them. So this one here, yeah, you basically have to jump and hit him sometimes. It's kind of a weird boss fight, this one. But he's not too difficult. You can usually just get him against the walls and it's fine. They start getting a bit strange at this boss fight. You have to hit this one from the back. So you have to let him jump over you and then turn around. And I'm actually missing some hits there, but you can see I'll get the hits when I push him forward. So yeah, this one goes on. I will speed it up a little bit, but you can see basically if you keep hitting him from the back, it works out okay in the end. You just got to take your time and not rush this one too much. Now this one here, I'm using swords, but what you can actually do is just duck and keep firing arrows at him. If you do that, sometimes the game can glitch out really bad and get really laggy. And the funny thing is they actually play it off as a feature in the instruction manual. They say, oh yeah, this dude has some power that causes the entire universe to glitch, but it's really just glitching the game. Now this last boss is probably the trickiest. You have to jump and hit him on the head with your sword. Now if you just slash normally, you won't actually hit this boss. So this is probably the one where most people would get stuck on this game. Especially having just fought 4 people before this, you wouldn't have much health left at this point. But yeah, you just got to keep hitting this one on the head, then you're done. And there it is. Okay, moving on. We're going to go left through this swamp. Left through the pirate area. I like how there's 2 maps there, sort of. And then left through the forest. All the way back to Linden. Now we don't actually need anything in Linden, so we're going to go straight through it. And we're going to head across back to Dwell. Now what I'm about to show you here is an optional boss fight. So you don't need to do this one coming up if you don't want to. It gets you a stronger sword if you do want to do it. So to get to this boss fight, you need to talk to this dude a whole bunch of times until he tells you about the beast at Mount Morgos. That's the optional boss we'll be fighting. And you can see that I have to talk to him heaps of times. And if I didn't talk to him, the boss wouldn't be there. So we're going to go up and right out of this town. Just again, this part is optional. Okay, so on our way to the optional boss here, we're going to head through this route. And then through the mountains, and we should arrive at the boss. Now this boss can be quite tricky, but if you get a pattern down with it, it's not too bad, hopefully. I was able to freeze it a few times in this video. I don't know exactly what causes it to freeze, but when it does, and we'll see it happen soon, you can get in a bunch of sword hits on it for free. So it's really good when it does do that. But as long as you keep jumping over the fireballs, you should be safe. And there we go, the boss is frozen a bit there, so I'm going to take my opportunity to hit it with the sword a few times. I'm just going to speed this up a bit because it is quite a long fight. The boss has a lot of health. But that's pretty much the idea behind it. And once we've beaten this, we'll burn the book that the wizard gave us, and then the wizard should give us a sword upgrade for burning that book. There we go. So we burnt the book there, and we'll head back to the wizard to get our upgrade. Now at this point, if you were using that demo exploit to get back to the start of the game, now's a good time to do that. We're heading all the way back to the start. And we're going to go through this route here, and we'll be back in Dwell. So if you didn't fight the boss, you would be right here, and you would just go left from Dwell. You wouldn't go up that mountain there, or talk to the dude in Dwell. But we're going to head all the way back to the start of the game here. So back through this route. Back through the forest and taking a left at the stairs, not an up left. Back through this swamp area. Then taking a down left from here. Then back through this. And finally back through the forest. That gets us back to Amon. Now if you fought the optional Mount Morgos boss, you can talk to the wizard here for a sword upgrade. That's what I'm going to do. But either way, you should talk to him because there's a thing that he says about Pharazon, and you need to see him say that to beat the game. So we'll see coming up shortly. Not quite yet. Here we go. On the way to Pharazon, there is a road to a mountain. He needs to say that to unlock the road to the final boss. And that last one he said this sword is the reward, and that was for beating that boss. Now, here's another optional boss. We're going to go left through the woods here, and that will get us to that optional boss. Alright, so on our way to the optional boss, we're going to come out the left from the woods and through the left here, and that gets us back to Harfoot, which is where we started the game. So we need to talk to this dude a few times until he says something about Medusa, which is the boss we're going to be fighting here. It takes him a few times to say it. There we go, strange statues, so that triggers the boss to spawn. Now, if you weren't going to fight this boss, you would have just gone straight up left from Amon, which we'll see in a moment. Okay, so through this route, through the forest, through the cliffs, and that brings us to Medusa. So Medusa will wake up. And yeah, fun fact, this boss is one of the 3 tasks that I mentioned at the start of the game when they were introducing all that story stuff. So it does say at the start of the game you have to beat Medusa, but you don't actually have to beat Medusa. Everything still works without beating Medusa. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think you actually get anything from beating this boss. But if you want to beat all bosses, there it is. So we're going to head through, right back through to Harfoot. Oops, my bad. And that brings us back to Harfoot there, eventually. We don't need to talk to this dude anymore. Now that we've beaten Medusa, he'll be happy. And we're going to head back through to Amon. Back through the forest. And we're actually going to take that up left now that we would have taken if we didn't fight the optional Medusa boss. Now we're going to head on our way back to Pharazon here. So we'll go through the forest, out to the left here. We're going to keep going left through the mountains. And we'll go left through the swamp. And that brings us to Pharazon. Now we're going to talk to the dude in this town quite a lot. And notice the house on the right. That's not going to be there for much longer. So talking to this dude opens up a path to the next area of the game. But you need to talk to this guy to open up the path. But also the wizard to open up the path like we did before. If you remember back when we were getting the 3rd sword upgrade, one of the things the wizard said is something about a path. So this is that path. Again, one of the more cryptic bits of the game. So once we go up these stairs, we're going to take a left all the way through here. And we're going to take a left through the mountains and take the bottom exit. And this is going to bring us to the first sort of dungeon-y cabin bit of the game. First and almost last. So we're going to get through the cave and we'll be straight in the dungeon. I will show this in full just because it's important to see how to get through it. The boss is basically on the top left, so that's what we're aiming for, but we have to do a bit of a circle around to get there. So we're going to go up here, then we're going to head to the right. I'll skip through this a little bit faster. Then we're going to go down and then kind of come back up again to the right. So now we're up here, we're going to go up and left. And that'll bring us to the boss here. So with this boss, you have to kill all of its skeleton things and then fight it down on the ground. It is possible to hit it while it's in the air, but it's not the greatest strategy to use. Now, really importantly, this boss drops a sword upgrade, although in our case, it's actually a downgrade. So there's 3 levels of sword and 3 levels of arrow. That is sword number 2 out of 3. But because we beat the fire guy on that mountain, we actually have the 3rd sword. So if we grabbed that sword upgrade, it would actually downgrade our sword, and then we would start doing 2 damage instead of 3. Really bad. So if you've done that optional boss, don't get that sword upgrade, because it'll be a downgrade. We're actually going to see the same thing happen with arrows a little bit later. We've actually got really good arrows at the moment, but there's potentially a downgrade to arrows in the next dungeon that we want to avoid. Where we got the arrow upgrade was after that swamp boss, by the way. So now that we're done in that dungeon, we're going to come back all the way out to Pharazon. We'll get through this cave, and through the cliffs, and then through the swamp. So that brings us back here. Now we actually do need to talk to this dude again. He says a key piece of information that we need to open the path to the last bit of the game. It's the Sega thing, with the daughter of Mayor Linden knowing more details. That clues us in to going to Linden now. So we're going to head back through here, through Amon, do a big loop through the game. You might notice in our next area, the forest, there was no staircase in this forest before. That opened when we opened the path in Farazon before. So there's sort of two ways to get to that dungeon we were just in. Anyway, we'll come back through here, all the way through Amon. We don't need to talk to the wizard here unless, of course, we're low on health. And then we're going to keep going to the right through this forest. And then take an up left on this castle here. You can't actually go in this castle, but it's just important to know. It's a good landmark to aim for. Okay, heading across, we're going to go through this route here, and we'll end up in Dwal. We don't need to do anything in Dwal here, we're going to go straight through to Linden, which is where that dude in Farazon told us to go. Okay, so through the swamp here, we'll get straight into Linden, and we need to talk to the lady in Linden quite a few times until she says what she needs to say. Now, depending on how many times you've talked to her before, it might take you a different number of times to get the messages you need, and that goes for everyone in this game. But they cycle through about 7 or 8 set messages, so it just depends where you are in that cycle. Once we've talked to her, we can head back out to the left of town, back through Dwal. And then we're going to go up right here. Now that lady in Linden opened up a new path. It was the upper left path here, so we're going to take that. And we're going to go all the way through to Shagart. We actually can get to Shagart from the very start of the game. But we'll see when we get in Shagart, there's this door in town and it's not open until now. And that lady in Linden opened the door. And she also opened a shortcut to get here. Okay, so this is the other dungeon here. So the boss is basically in the top left again, and I will show this whole thing again, just so that you can see where we go. We'll speed this up a bit though. So you basically fall down and left until you get to the very bottom left of the dungeon here. And then we're going to start climbing. And then we're going to climb up left here to get to the boss. And this will essentially be the last boss in the game. So with this boss, what you've got to do is you've got to shoot arrows at it. It'll put its shield up. And then you've got to kind of sword its legs. It's kind of hard to tell when you hit it. Usually it kind of bounces back when you hit it like that. But that's essentially what you do. You can play this boss really safe if you just keep arrowing it and inching closer. But if you want to do it at all quickly, then you've got to play it a bit riskier. But yeah, it's not really too difficult of a final boss. You've really just got to have patience with it. And there's the final boss beaten. So, given that's the final boss beaten, you'd think it'd be the end of the game, but it's not. We still have to walk back to Castle Varlin, which is sort of in that bottom area of the map. So I'll show you how to get out of this dungeon first. You can basically just get back down to the bottom and then go up. So you're going up that right wall there. Again, Castle Violence is pretty close to where you start the game, so if you do want to use that demo exploit to get back to the start, that'll save you a lot of time here, but I will be walking back in this video just to show you the path that you would take there. So we're going to head right from Shagart here. and that'll get us all the way back to Castle Island. So we're going to take a few rights here, and then a right through the mountains, and then we'll go down and left through this path here. If we took a right here, that would get us back to that optional fire boss we saw before, but we don't need to go there. We're going to go through Dwal now. You don't need to talk to anyone at this point unless you want to heal up, but if you do talk to them, you'll see they're all congratulating you for saving the world or whatever. It's a pretty nice touch that they put on the end of the game. So we're going to take a left through the forest here, and then don't go up the stairs. If you went up, it would take us back to that tree we saw right at the start of the game. And then we're at Castle Island, so all you need to do is head in and you've beaten Lord of the Sword. Probably one of the more difficult and cryptic games on the Master System. It's definitely got a few well-hidden secrets that aren't super obvious, but once you get past that, it's a pretty enjoyable experience, I find. Fun fact, that little text clash isn't there in the Japanese version. That must have just been something that happened as they translated it. There's Lord of the Sword, and hopefully you enjoyed this speedy walkthrough. See you next time.